On to another Indian neighbour, that is Myanmar. It's been gripped by a civil war since late last year, but now New Delhi is worried. The government of India has released an advisory, their first since violence broke out. And what does it say? Leave Rakhine state immediately. If you're planning to travel there, do not. If you're already there, leave. That's the message from New Delhi. Some context now. Rakhine is a state in Myanmar. It is located along the western coast of the country. It is close to, but does not border India. You may have heard of this region before. It was home to the Rohingya Muslims. They were driven out by the Myanmar army. But now the roles have changed. The army is the one being hunted. By whom? The Arakan army. They are part of the ethnic coalition against the junta. It's called the Three Brotherhood Alliance, the ethnic coalition. And the Arakan army is fierce. They've made major gains since last year. A number of outposts have been captured. A few cities have changed hands. Even military installations have fallen. The Arakan army says they've captured 2 junta battalion headquarters in just the last week. 2 in 1 week. In fact, junta soldiers are on the run. Some 260 of them fled to Bangladesh recently, so the Rakhine state is a battlefield and things could get even more ugly there. Which is why India has issued this advisory. But will that alone be enough? I ask because the fighting is spreading. It's not just limited to Rakhine. Violence has been reported in the Shan state as well, in the Chin state, in Karneni and the Sagaing state. So it's all over Myanmar really. Western countries have started to take notice. They're asking the junta to stop the violence.
We strongly condemn the ongoing violence harming civilians, including the military's continued use of indiscriminate airstrikes. We echo the call of ASEAN in urging the Myanmar armed forces in particular to cease its attacks on civilians and civilian infrastructure.
India too is concerned. New Delhi has not openly criticized the junta, but it has called for the violence to end.
I would like to say that we are concerned with the deteriorating situation in Myanmar, which has direct implications for us. As a neighboring country and friend of Myanmar, India has been long advocating for complete cessation of violence and Myanmar's transition towards inclusive federal democracy.
Well, that was last week. And now an advisory is out. India is not just looking at the current crisis, it is also looking at a long-term solution. And what is that? A border fence. It could be a controversial decision. India's Home Minister made the announcement on Tuesday. He said the entire border with Myanmar will be fenced. Plus, a patrol track will be constructed. The idea is to constantly monitor the border. Now, the need for a fence is understandable. Some 5,000 Myanmar refugees have entered India since last year. Dozens of soldiers have also fled here. And in the current context, it is worrying. India's Manipur state shares a border with Myanmar, and right now Manipur is in the middle of a crisis. 2 ethnic groups are fighting there. So the last thing you want is outside influence, making things worse. In fact, the Manipur chief minister has openly called for a fence. But others are not so keen. The chief ministers of Nagaland and Mizoram have opposed it. And why is that? Because of local sentiments. Indian border communities have families on the other side in Myanmar. Right now, they can travel across and meet them. Few checks, no hassles. But a border fence is going to change all of that. It would make travel more difficult, hence the opposition. Of course, the final decision lies with the centre, so looks like the fence will be built. It may limit India's exposure to the civil war in Myanmar, but it's not a complete solution. For that, the fighting needs to end. But will the junta agree to that? They're getting more desperate for sure. On Monday, a school in southern Myanmar was flattened by airstrikes. At least 4 children were killed, around 15 others were injured. Now, the junta has not claimed responsibility yet, but airstrikes are their MO, their modus operandi. Eyewitnesses spotted fighter jets flying over the region. Only the junta operate those. The rebels mostly use homemade drones. So chances are this was the junta. And imagine striking a school. You do that when you're desperate, when you want to frighten your enemies. So this war is not over yet. The rebels may have made gains on the ground, but the junta controls the skies. Things could get worse before they get better.